Welcome to See You Next Tuesday on Saturday, the 18th of February, but focusing on all of the things that are business, finance. So let's get into it, talking about a miss. To all of the Manchester United fans, for the last 8 years, they have been shitting on Manchester City because they are state-owned by Abu Dhabi. But now, it looks like they are also going to be state-owned by Qatar. Manchester United are looking to be acquired by the Qatari royal family, more specifically the Qatar Investment Authority, also known as the QIA. Their current leader is Sheikh Al Thani, a longtime Manchester United fan. He's decided that he's gonna buy them out, and his original bid is looking to be $5 billion. Right now, Manchester United, they've floated on the New York Stock Exchange and they've got a market cap of $4.34 billion. And in 2008, Manchester City ended up getting purchased by Abu Dhabi. Last year, Newcastle United ended up getting purchased by Saudi Arabia. The amount of money that has now come in to soccer in the last 15 years has just been massive. And basically the only people who can afford these teams now are oligarchs, oil states, like your Dubai's, Saudi Arabia, Qatar's, and your American billionaires. Sheikh Al Thani has put out a few statements that were shown by Fabrizio Romano today. Number one, saying that his intention is to make Manchester United again the biggest club in the world. They've struggled since Sir Alex Ferguson left in 2012, 2013. That was the last time they won the Premier League. First thing he said. And the second one, and I think this one is actually interests a lot of Manchester United fans, bid will be 100% debt-free via Sheikh Jassim's 9-2 foundation. This is super important part for Manchester United, and I want to take a step back going to 2005 when Manchester United were last acquired. They were purchased by the Glazer family. When Manchester United was originally purchased, they were purchased with what's called a leveraged buyout. With the leveraged buyout, they purchased Manchester United for £800 million, but £600 million worth of it was actually debt. Essentially what was happening was, from one day, Manchester United had £100 million worth of debt. It went up to £600 million worth of debt that needed to be paid off. All these loans were now actually being paid by Manchester United. Any revenue that was coming in to Manchester United, sponsorships or ticket sales, any deals like that, was now being used to pay off the debt. And when this was originally done, the Glazers put so much debt onto Manchester United. If you were taking on £600 million worth of debt, what do you think would be a reasonable interest rate? What do you think would be a reasonable amount of debt that could be taken on with that much money? At the time, the Glazers agreed to debt with the banks for 14.5%. Suddenly, Manchester United had to pay out $60 million a year in debt just to have their own club. Manchester United moved from a club that cared about winning the league, winning the Champions League, but now it wasn't about that. It was about making money. So here comes in Ed Woodward. Now, Ed Woodward is an accountant and investment banker who came on when the Glazers bought out the company, and his role was to bring in additional revenue for Manchester United. And he did a really good job. He brought in a bunch of sponsorships. However, he didn't put in the structures in place to make Manchester United a winning team. They didn't hire a director of football. They didn't get any new scouts. They struggled really bad finding the right players and the right managers. And as a result, they just stopped winning. And the ethos of what Manchester United cared about completely changed. And that was shown by what they started doing in 2012, when the Glazers would actually take dividends out of Manchester United. Man United became part of the New York Stock Exchange. They've been there since 2012. They started doing was taking out dividends from the account. So essentially what they were doing, they were leveraging a shit ton of money onto Manchester United in debt, at the same time taking out dividends which is paid to themselves. So they're taking the money essentially out of Manchester United and putting it into their own pockets. And this has been super contentious for a very long time now, especially for a team as big as Manchester United. So what's really happened since then? So this has been going on for about 15 years. Fans hate them so much, but Manchester United are now doing pretty well. And they've had a tumultuous time getting a bunch of coaches. That Louis van Gaal, that didn't work out. They brought in Jose Mourinho, that didn't work out. They brought in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, a former United player. That just also didn't work out. In the soccer side of things, they bought all these players that were just not right. They bought Angel Di Maria, who left a year later. They recently bought Cristiano Ronaldo back, and he ended up leaving after that explosive email with Piers Morgan. And of course, Paul Pogba, who they let go for free and then bought back for 90 million. Crazy numbers. It just never worked out. Even though Manchester United was still spending money, they never really cared about what they did. They just spent money with no direction and they weren't winning things. Finally brought in Erik ten Hag. The team's doing really well now, but again, they still hate their owners. What has happened since then? Manchester United were looking to join the European Super League. The European Super League was a breakaway of all the biggest teams in the world. All these teams would be able to play each other on a regular basis consistently. So it was 12 teams in 2021 that included some of the biggest teams in the Premier League: Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, United, Tottenham, a couple of Italian teams, a couple of Spanish teams. That was going on for about a couple of days, and then the fans absolutely hated it, and it ended up getting rejected. The whole idea was that these teams could bring in stable income. If you're in the Champions League, which is the highest caliber of European football, you will get paid 4 times the amount that you would be if you were in the Europa League. So if you're a team like Manchester United, who might do well and then might not, that can change the amount of revenue that's being brought in by hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. They wanted stable income. They wanted to know, regardless of how they end up in their respective domestic league, that they would be able to have the same amount of revenue coming in. It got rejected, and the Glazers saw this is the perfect time to sell. We're not going to make any more money, and we're going to make a big payday. That's what's happening right now, and that leads us to today. Now it's about, who are they going to sell to? There are a couple of names out here, but it does look like it's going to be the Qatari Royals. But there is some other interesting parts to this. So firstly, the QIA, the Qatar Investment Authority, they look to be the consortium that are looking to purchase Manchester United. They've got stakes in Porsche, Volkswagen, Barclays, the bank, Harrods Group as well is a big one. There is one thing that could potentially stop. It's actually got to do with another soccer team here, PSG. Paris Saint-Germain, they are also a Qatari sponsored base team. They've also got some of the biggest players in the world. Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, they're massive. So they are owned by Qatar, but they are owned by the Qatar Sports Investment. Apparently, the QIA, the Qatar Investment Authority, and Qatar Sports Investments have no connection whatsoever, except that QSI is actually a subsidiary of the QIA. Qatar Investment Authority is actually worth like $445 billion. They're looking to purchase Manchester United for $5 billion. That just shows how much money these guys have. The reason why this is important is because, in theory, the rule is if you are an owner of a team, you can only compete in European competitions like the Champions League or the Europa League. You can only own one team. So the QIA and the QSG are going to have to show that they are separate entities. And if not, then UEFA could potentially block it. I don't think that's going to happen. I reckon they're going to get purchased. It's been, what I like to think, a pretty interesting saga, because if you're a Manchester United fan, you are stuck between a rock and a hard place. You either are dealing with the Glazer family for owners who simply do not care about you. All they care about is making money. Or you get moved to become a state-owned based team. You'll do well. You will do really, really well. PSG have won everything except the Champions League. Man City have won the Premier League for 4 of the last 5 years. Newcastle, not even 1 year into the buyout, is already 4th in the league when they were going to be relegated. But there is obviously the ethical part of sports washing. The QIA were the consortium that brought Qatar the World Cup for the last 12, 13 years, had all the issues of bringing in migrant workers as slaves. They lose their passports, or they're not allowed to use their passports. They're not allowed to leave Qatar, and they work under slave labor. Where do you put your morals aside and be like, okay, we have a shit situation right now with our terrible owners, but we don't want oil money destroying soccer, which it already is. My opinion on this is that over time, Manchester United are going to be purchased, be acquired. They'll put the right structures in place because these teams actually do a really good job of it. They spend the money and they'll start winning. Fans won't care anymore. A couple here and there will, and they'll be like, I'll never watch Manchester United again. The same people who are like, I'm never going to watch the World Cup. At the end of the day, people are going to see it as a minor inconvenience, but they want their teams to win. 100%. People forget their morals within a week, within a few days or a week, like so quickly. They just don't care. But it genuinely is a shame, especially with the big Premier League clubs just being bought out by Qatari owners.